Now it's my pleasure to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Jim McIngvale. Jim Mattress Mack McIngvale was born in Mississippi, graduated from Dallas Bishop Lynch High School, and was a student at the University of Texas and the University of North Texas, where he played football for both schools. Mattress Mack started gallery furniture more than 3 decades ago, first operating under tents at the side of a freeway. He now employs 400 workers at 3 locations, and he's quite a success story. I remember years ago watching him on TV. His life's motto is grateful for everything, entitled to nothing. And as he's built his business, so too did he build his reputation for generosity. His philanthropic efforts extend back decades. McIngvale has given away households of furniture at Christmas for more than 20 years and has given generously to schools, universities, and the overall community long before he famously opened the doors of his stores to shelter Hurricane Harvey survivors last year, despite the fact that his own home had flooded. In fact, McIngvale did the same thing for Hurricane Katrina evacuees in 2005. In an interview with Time magazine last year, he said opening his stores to Harvey victims was an easy decision. Quote, "Being together in a space is helpful for all of us. People don't feel like they're on their own." A local TV station described McIngvale as unrelenting in offering a helping hand and called him a symbol of the generosity and kindness that Houston is all about. He is the co-author of the book, Always Think Big, and as you're about to see, he's a very engaging speaker. Please help me in welcoming Jim Mattress Mack McIngvale.
Thank you very much. I am honored and delighted to be here today at the Bench Bar Breakfast. I want to thank Susan for inviting me here today. And yes, Susan, amazingly, I did make it here on time. I was asked to speak about Hurricane Harvey and tell you my story, so here goes. It was Friday night, August 24th, 2017, and about 12 of us decided to spend the night at Gallery Furniture North Freeway as we awaited the arrival of one Hurricane Harvey. And so I went to the mattress area. I slept on a famous Gallery Furniture Tempur-Pedic mattress, and I slept very well that night. I woke up early Saturday morning, and I looked out in the feeder road. There was about 3 feet of water in the feeder road, so we're going to close on Saturday. I've been in business out there for about 37 years now, and other than Christmas falling on Saturday, we'd never closed a Saturday before. And to me, a day without cash flow is like a day without oxygen, so I was very anxious. And anyway, about 3 or 4 o'clock, at least on the north side of Houston, the sun came out and the sky cleared up. Water drained off the feeder road, and I drove around the neighborhood, and there were several retailers, grocery stores open. So we opened about 4 o'clock, sold a few mattresses and sofas, and I went home to my house over here by the Gallery Area store Saturday night. As I slept Saturday night, I knew it was raining very heavily all night Saturday night. Got up Sunday morning to go to church, and I got in my little truck, backed out in the street in front of the house, and there was about 3 feet of water. So I said, I'm not going to do that. Went back in the house, and about 11 o'clock, I got very antsy. And I drove my truck down to San Felipe, and the street had about 4 feet of water in it. I was driving down San Felipe, and there was this lady in this BMW stuck in the middle of the road. All these big trucks kept going by her, blowing water into her car. So she motioned me to take my truck and push her up on the median, and I did that, and my tailpipes went underneath the water, and I should have stopped right then. And the story would have been quite different, but it didn't. So I went to Westheimer and Post Oak. Westheimer was terribly flooded, so was Post Oak, but the furniture store is in a little elevated parking lot. It was fine. Then I went the wrong way on Westheimer to get onto 610. I got on 610, came over the first overpass. As I came over the first overpass, the cars are coming the wrong way on the freeway. That's when you know that the shit has hit the fan. So anyway, I finally got close to Gallery Furniture North Freeway. I called Jeremy, our warehouse manager, who'd stayed there Friday and Saturday night. I said, how do I get there? He said, you can't get off on the exit ramp. Get off on the entrance ramp, come the wrong way, and you might make it there. And I finally got there about noon. And the phones were ringing off the wall. The emails were exploding, and my text messages were going ding, 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 nonstop. People saying, come rescue us, we're going to drown. It wasn't that the firemen and the policemen and EMTs had done a bad job. It wasn't they had done a magnificent job. It was this was truly a flood of biblical proportions. And we'd done a good job of preparing for this hurricane. We'd rented about 18 of these Penske 26-foot trucks with a real high cab so we'd get through the water. And we were totally prepared for that. What we hadn't prepared for the fact was that none of our employees could get to work. They were all flooded in also. And my son James, who does our digital stuff, was in Dallas with his wife and 3 children. So I asked him how I could get out the message that Gallery Furniture North Freeway was going to be open as a shelter for people from the storm, and Gallery Furniture Richmond was going to be open as a shelter, and how we could encourage people who had commercial driver's licenses to come get these trucks from us and rescue people. He said, Dad, you got to do a Facebook Live. I said, boy, I'm 67 years old. I've never done a Facebook Live. So he coached me through the Facebook Live, and in an hour, that Facebook Live had 4.5 million views. And the people started coming in. And they waded up the feeder road with their life belonging in a black plastic trash bag. You know the story. And they came in, they were traumatized and covered with the dirty, muddy water. And the drivers came in with a commercial driver's license, and we didn't check them out. We just looked at their driver's license, paired them up 2 at a time, and gave them a truck, told them where to go pick up the people at. We have a sign at the front of Gallery Furniture that says the American West was not settled by men and women who had taken a course on how to be a pioneer. Sometimes you got to jump in the breach. And they went out and they rescued the people on overpasses in the driving rain. And they rescued them in convenience stores where they had taken shelter from the storm, and they rescued them in neighborhoods as the boats brought them to the back of the truck and put them in the back of the truck. And we loaded the people in the back of these big Penske trucks, 8, 10, 12 at a time, like cattle. There was no other way to do it. And they brought them in. And they walked in that furniture store. They were totally traumatized. And so this went on all day as it kept raining all day. And finally, about 8 o'clock, starting to get dark, and I got a call from I-10 in Wallaceville in northeast Houston. The Northeast Houston police station, all 50 officers' cars were totally submerged by the water. So he sent these 2 brothers that had already picked out 2 truckloads of people that picked them up successfully. So I sent them out to I-10 in Wallaceville to pick up another truckload. At 8 o'clock, and then about 10 o'clock, I get this phone call from this woman who's panicked. She says, I was talking to my husband on his cell phone. He's in the back of one of your trucks at I-10 in Wallaceville. And then everybody in the back of the truck started screaming because water's coming in the back of the truck, and his cell phone cut off. And she said, I don't know if he's alive. So I tried to call the 2 brothers that were driving the truck, and they didn't answer the cell phone either. And I thought to myself, my God, we drowned 10 people. So the only 2 people we had that we could dispatch to try to rescue them was our receiving manager named Anthony. He's about 6 foot 9 inches tall. And this other kid that's worked for me for years, his name is Junior. He's 5 foot tall. So I sent them out as the odd couple to try to rescue these people. Normally, to get to where they were going would take about 20 minutes. But as they drove and looked on Google Maps, all the roads were black or red, which means impassable. They tried to get off on the exit at I-10 in Wallaceville, and the Cajun Navy was launching boats on the exit ramp. And so finally they went the back roads and they drove through the neighborhood over these creeks, not knowing if they were going to drive right into the creek or go through over the bridge. Finally, they got to about a half mile where the GPS showed the truck to be, and the water was 6 feet high, touching the window on the truck. They stopped in this convenience store, and the wake from the water was so strong it took the ice machine and floated it away. So the water's over Junior's head, but Anthony got out to try to find these people. And he's wading through this water, being careful not to trip over a curb or an undulation. He finally gets the truck, and there's nobody there. And now he's really panicked. He throws caution to the wind, starts rushing through the water. And as he's rushing back through the dirty water, he promptly steps in a manhole. And the vortex of the water sucks him in. And he's heading to Galveston Bay. It all happened so quickly, he didn't have time to take a breath. And he sticks his long arms out instinctively against the concrete, catches himself, fights his way up, gets a breath of air, and the water sucks him in again. He had these shorts on, pushes his legs out against the concrete, rips all the skin off both of his legs, and fights his way out. Comes back through the dirty water, finds Junior. And they found another route where the water wasn't so high, and they get to I-10 in Wallaceville. About 1:30 in the morning, and the entire freeway is empty, not a car on it, just water all over the freeway. And they looked across the freeway. There was a truck there with a boat launch on the ramp on the back. So they waded across I-10, climbed over the median, and asked the lady, "Do you know what happened to those people in that truck over there?" She said, "Yeah, my husband picked them up, took them to George R. Brown." And I still hadn't heard from him about this time now. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And Anthony's wife-to-be, his girlfriend, they're going to get married in 3 months, was at Gallery Furniture. And she has a premonition that Anthony, too, is drowned, and the tension at that furniture store is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And about that time, it's raining cats and dogs, still very hot, very humid outside. But inside, we've got the air conditioning cranked down to about 60 degrees because we got 250 people sleeping in there, and we wanted them to be comfortable. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, the front door opens. This little girl walks in. She's Hispanic, and she's 7 years old. And she had her parents with her and another guy who I think was her uncle. She was the only one out of the 4 that spoke a word of English. She was hot. She was wet. She was traumatized. She was scared to death. And all of them were totally drenched like they'd been swimming as they waded up to 3 or 4 feet of water in the feeder road. She walked in the front door, and now she's not only traumatized and wet, but now she's freezing because of that cold furniture store, and her little teeth are chattering. She's crying uncontrollably, and she walks up to where I'm at about 3 feet from me, and after about a minute, she's able to talk, and she says, "Can we stay here tonight?" And I've heard my people cry. And she stayed there, as did hundreds. And one great big menacing guy kept walking around all night, people sleeping everywhere. And we were afraid he's going to do something violent. And finally he came up to me and he said, "Do you know where the trash bags are?" I said, "Yeah, they're over there." And he got the trash bags, started emptying trash. And his countenance totally changed. And I said, "What's the difference?" He said, "I'm so traumatized because of the water in my house." He said, "All my life, all I've ever wanted to do was help people, and this makes me feel better." And over the next several days, we had all these reporters come in there from the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, CBS and NBC and Fox and CNN and BBC and Australian broadcast. And they all said the same thing. They said, "How could you possibly let these total strangers into your furniture store and let them sleep on your fancy sofas and your mattresses and your recliners? And how could you possibly do all that?" And my answer was, how could I not? How could I not? My beloved parents are both in heaven, I believe, as is my beloved brother George. And during that entire ordeal, they were looking down on me, and they were saying to me, "You know what to do." And I did. And Over the term of Hurricane Harvey at both stores, we probably had 2,000 people sleep there the 2 or 3 nights. And out of those 2,000 nights slept, only 3 people peed on a mattress. That's not bad. Less than the national average at the Marriott, I'm told. And then all the reporters, the other stupid question, they said, what are you going to do with all these furniture these people have been sitting on? I said, what the hell do you think I'm going to do with it? I'm going to sell it. Hurricane Harvey was the worst of times for Southeast Texas. All the way from Rockport to Houston to Beaumont, 50 to 70 inches of rain. Enough rain to fuel Niagara Falls for 21 days straight. 1 out of every 5 cars in Harris County totaled. Hundreds of thousands of homes with 2 to 10 feet of water in them. It was the worst of times. But Hurricane Harvey was also the best of times for Houston and Southeast Texas, because for one brief moment in time we forgot about all the divisive politics, right wing, left wing, and we all came together. And we cared about one thing, which we should care about all the time, and that was people. And it was a beautiful thing. We had all types of people there from all over the world come in to help. And we had all types of Texans and Houstonians there. I met this guy named Trey the Truth. He's a rapper. I would never know Trey the Truth in 1,000 years. He bought over 20 truckloads of water, 52-foot truckloads of water, and brought them to our store to distribute to people at $20,000 a piece. I got a call one afternoon. This guy says, my name is Steve Van Doren. He said, I'm with Van Shoes. I want to bring by 5,000 pair of shoes and give them away. And I admit I'm not a hipster. I said to one of these kids, what the hell is Van Shoes? And they told me what it was, and he came by, and he didn't give away 5,000 pair of shoes. He gave away 15,000. It was the best of times. We came together as a community. And so, 2 weeks after Hurricane Harvey, I was at front of Gallery Furniture one Sunday. It was very busy. And this woman walks in wearing a yellow vest that says Mormon Church Volunteer. And she says, I'd like to bring about 15 Mormon women, men by here to talk to you about your volunteer effort in a few minutes. One of them is Gifford Nielsen. I said, sure, bring him by. Gifford Nielsen played football at BYU, had played football for the Houston Oilers. And for 20 years, he was the sports broadcaster of KHOU television here in Houston. So they came by, these 20 Mormons in their yellow volunteer vest. And I asked them how many Mormons they had from around the world in Houston helping people. They said within 10 days after the storm, we had 6,000 volunteers. And they all stayed in the other Mormons' homes. And one Mormon lived in a subdivision in North Houston that was devastated. There were 500 people that lived in that neighborhood. One Mormon, they mucked out his house, cleaned it up, and fed the entire neighborhood for 6 weeks, mucked out every house in the entire neighborhood. I did this speech in California a couple weeks ago, and some guy says, that's easy for them to do. They were brought up that way. My question is, why can't we all be brought up that way? Why can't we all be brought up to put our divisive politics aside and to help people? Because at the end of the day, unity and community is all that matters. Hurricane Harvey was the defining event of my life. I learned, as I already knew, that by doing well, you do good. Every other customer that comes in that furniture store now says, I'm here to buy from you because of what you did. People want to see good. People want to know that somebody cares. People want to know that you can help the least, last, and lost. I am half capitalist and half social worker, and I'm proud to be both. In this high-tech age, we also need high touch. Supreme Court Justice Hecht talked about mental health issues. The mental health issues from Hurricane Harvey are still going on. Every day I get people in that furniture store that have been out of their home for 10 months now, and they're still not back in. Traumatized is not a strong enough word to describe it. We have to reach out and help each other. I have an adopted child and I have a child with a mental illness. So I've been down the road on mental illness, and I've been down the road on adopting a child who's had severe abuse. One of my favorite people is a guy named Bruce Perry. He is a world-famous child psychiatrist and neurologist who practices half the time here in Houston at the Child Trauma Institute and half the time in Canada. Bruce Perry says that human beings were made to live, work, play, and die in groups. Live, work, play, and die in groups. Did you know that the average size of a U.S. household in 1850 was 10.5 people? The average size of a U.S. household, according to the last census, was 3, and 1 out of every 3 U.S. households is a household of 1, and 1's the loneliest number. And what we found out through Hurricane Harvey and having Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas toy gives away at Gallery Furniture and these other things we've been doing for years is that there truly is unity in community. And by people coming together and sharing their humanity, they find out that even though this guy or girl looks different from me, we're all the same. We all have the same concerns. We all want to be able to raise our children in a neighborhood where they have a chance to succeed. And so on we go. 10 months later, we need to have more days, as Judge said, of civility. More days celebrating our shared humanity as Texans. As those people asked me, how could you let all these people in that furniture store, it reminded me of a quote from Winston Churchill. What type of people do they think we are? We're Texans and we take care of each other. And we continue to do that. It has been a long road since Hurricane Harvey, but it has not been a lonely road because we're all in this together here in Houston. We have traveled it together. And our Mayor, Sylvester Turner, has done a great job of moving us forward. The lessons for Hurricane Harvey are that we need unity in community and we need to step up and help each other. And we need to look to the past to see what type of values we need to have in the future. I have received all sorts of awards since Hurricane Harvey, and I'm not the hero. The hero are the first responders, firemen and policemen who risk their lives to help people. But I got an award from the Four Chaplains Foundation several months ago, and the award was given at the Michael DeBakey VA Hospital down here at the Texas Medical Center. Dr. Michael DeBakey is one of my all-time heroes. He was a great Texan and changed medicine forever. I walked in the hospital, and there was a big bust of Dr. DeBakey, and I felt like he was there. And after I got the award, I decided to study what the Four Chaplains Foundation was all about. Here's what it's all about, and here to me is what life is all about. The story of the Four Chaplains. It was the evening of February 2nd, 1943, and the United States Army Transport Dorchester was crowded to capacity, carrying 902 servicemen, merchant seamen, and civilian workers. Once a luxury coastal liner, the 5,649-ton vessel had been converted into an Army transport ship. The Dorchester, one of 3 ships in the SG-19 convoy, was moving steadily across the icy waters from Newfoundland toward an American base in Greenland. SG-19 was escorted by Coast Guard cutters Tampa, Ensenada, and Comanche. Hans J. Danielson, the ship's captain, was concerned and cautious. Earlier, the Tampa had detected a submarine with its sonar. Danielson knew he was in dangerous waters even before he got the alarming information. German U-boats were constantly prowling these vital sea lanes, and several ships had already been blasted and sunk. The Dorchester was now only 150 miles from its destination, but the captain ordered the men to sleep in their clothing and keep life jackets on. Many soldiers sleeping deep in the ship's hold disregarded the order because of the engine's tremendous heat. Others ignored it because the life jackets were terribly uncomfortable. On February 3rd at 12:55 a.m., a periscope broke through the chilly Atlantic waters. Through the crosshairs, an officer aboard the German submarine U-223 spotted the Dorchester. The U-223 approached the convoy on the surface, and after identifying and targeting the ship, he gave the order to fire the torpedoes, and a fan of 3 were fired. The one that hit was decisive and deadly, striking the starboard side amidship far below the waterline. Captain Danielson, alerted that the Dorchester was taking water rapidly and sinking, gave the order to abandon ship. In less than 20 minutes, the Dorchester would slip beneath the Atlantic's icy waters. Tragically, the hit had knocked out power and radio contact with 3 escort ships. The CGC Comanche, however, saw the flash of the explosion. It responded and then rescued 97 survivors. The Ensenada circled the Dorchester, rescuing an additional 132 survivors. The third cutter, Tampa, continued on, escorting the remaining 2 ships. Aboard the Dorchester, panic and chaos had set in. The blast had killed scores of men, and many more were seriously wounded. Others, stunned by the explosion, were groping in the darkness. Those sleeping without clothing rushed topside, where they were confronted first by a blast of icy Arctic air and then by the knowledge that death soon awaited. Men jumped from the ship into lifeboats, overcrowding them to the point of capsizing, according to eyewitnesses. Other rafts tossed into the Atlantic drifted away before the soldiers could get into them. Through the pandemonium, according to those present, 4 Army chaplains brought hope and despair and light and darkness. Those chaplains were Lieutenant George L. Fox, Methodist; Lieutenant Alexander D. Good, Jewish; Lieutenant John P. Washington, Roman Catholic; and Clark B. Poling, Dutch Reformed. Quickly and quietly, the 4 chaplains spread out among the soldiers. They tried to calm the frightened, tend the wounded, and guide the disoriented toward safety. Witnesses of that terrible night remember hearing the 4 men offer prayers for the dying and encouragement for those who would live, said Wyatt Fox, son of Reverend Fox. One witness, Private William B. Bendner, found himself floating in oil-smeared water, surrounded by dead bodies and debris. I could hear men crying, pleading, praying, Bednar recalls. I could also hear the chaplains preaching courage. Their voices were the only thing that kept me going. Another sailor, Petty Officer John J. Mahoney, tried to re-enter his cabin, but Rabbi Good stopped him. Mahoney, concerned about the cold Arctic air, explained he had forgotten his gloves. Never mind, Rabbi Good responded, I have 2 pair. The rabbi then gave the petty officer his own gloves. In retrospect, Mahoney realized that Rabbi Good was not conveniently carrying 2 pair of gloves, and the rabbi had decided not to leave the Dorchester. By this time, most of the men were topside, and the chaplains opened the storage locker and began distributing life jackets. It was then that engineer Grady Clark witnessed an astonishing sight. When there were no more life jackets in the storage room, the chaplains removed theirs and gave them to 4 frightened young men. It was the finest thing I have ever seen or hope to see this side of heaven, said John Ladd, another survivor who saw the chaplain's selfless act. Ladd's response is understandable. The altruistic action of the 4 chaplains constitutes one of the purest spiritual and ethical acts a person can make. When giving away their life jackets, Rabbi Good did not call out for a Jew. Father Washington did not call out for a Catholic, nor did Reverends Fox or Poling call out for a Protestant. They simply gave them to the next man in line. As the ship went down, survivors in nearby rafts could see the 4 chaplains, arms linked, braced against the slanting deck. Their voices could also be heard offering prayers. Of the 902 men above the United States Army transport Dorchester, 672 died, leaving 230 survivors. When the news reached American shores, the nation was stunned by the magnitude of the tragedy and heroic conduct of the 4 chaplains. Valor is a gift. Valor is a gift, Carl Sandburg once said. Those having it never know for sure whether they have it until the test comes. The test came to Houston and to Texas August 24, 25, 26 2017. We passed the test. Now the question is, going forward, how do we bring unity in community so we can all make Texas a better place? Thanks very much.